Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there, feeling fantastic, and having a great start to your Tuesday and a great work week out there so far. Got you a big update this morning talking about what's going to happen weather-wise for today, as we always do, and then we're going to merge this into a big update on the tropics too. But then we're going to re-go over everything on what's going on with the tropics tonight. We're going to solely focus in on Tropical Storm Bret and what could soon be Tropical Storm Cindy. So it's pretty wild out there. This is very unusual what's going on with the tropics, and we're going to give this certainly a good bit of time towards the end of the video. So I will have tabs pulled up where you can skip ahead to certain areas of the video because this will likely be another 30-minute video. And if you just want an update on the tropics, you can just skip right ahead. Just give me about 5 minutes, and then I'll drop tabs in it right after I drop the video. But some severe weather is possible today across areas of the Gulf Coast. This is, this is pretty much old news and news we don't want to hear anymore, but it's going to be news for today again. But it's a little bit further back west. Louisiana, maybe southern Mississippi could have some big time storms, a little bit of a cyclonic flow around this upper level spin that's going on and causing a lot of flooding issues, which will be a topic in this video too, across the Carolinas. And then we'll talk about areas of how the northern plains could see some severe weather, and we'll talk about everybody. So if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. Guys, June has by far been the most successful June that I've ever had on this channel, so I want to take a moment just to thank y'all, appreciate y'all, and appreciate the support. It's been a grind. It feels like it's almost back in February or March or January where you got to continuously push out content to keep people aware, but it's pretty wild. You don't see this kind of stuff in June, but here we are. So thank y'all for the support. Welcome to any new subscribers. Family type atmosphere here, and we all look out for one another, love one another, and it's a great atmosphere here on this channel. So if you folks got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, you know the deal. Please put it in the comments below so I can pray over it and so others can do so too. Let's get rolling here. There's a lot to discuss. We're going to work through this quick, efficiently, and we're going to get you guys some good information here. So unfortunately, we have a ridge beginning to dominate the central portion of the country again. So what that means is all the weather is pretty much blocked from happening kind of in this area of the country right here, right in the middle of the country. Now you do have troughing setting up a cold front. You got pieces of energy riding this trough, and therefore you're going to have another wave of strong to severe storms across eastern Montana and the western Dakotas today, especially western North Dakota. We'll talk about that in this video. You got this spin ongoing right here, this upper level spin. This is creating a big time moist flow across the southeast. Flooding, you got flash flood warnings ongoing right now across areas of the western Carolinas, western North Carolina especially. And it's just a big time moist flow riding in from the south to the north in general. And this will continue over the next several days. Texas up to Oklahoma, to Louisiana, very hot today with not much rain falling to cool you guys down in the afternoon. You're going to deal with intense heat. We'll talk about how hot in this video also. And we just got this kind of omega block setting up again where you got a ridge of high pressure all the way up, building all the way up into Canada, so hot all the way up into Canada. And then you have troughing in general with this upper level low spin right into here. So we're going to have storms with a boundary that's probably going to be right into here, down here into Louisiana today. And we're going to talk about who could see the worst weather in this video. We'll take a look at what's kind of falling at the surface right now. And we'll take a look at the southeast first. You can see the spin. The spin's kind of right over the Kentucky-Tennessee state line. This is spinning away. So, I mean, you just kind of got a flow around it that's just moving like this. So, over the Georgia and the Carolinas right now, you got a flow that's in general moving out the south to the north. And this moisture is all going all up against the eastern slopes of the North Carolina mountains. It's called kind of like an upslope flow. So it basically squeezes out all the moisture possible. And you see where you have these flash flood warnings right along kind of the North Carolina, South Carolina state line right in here. I live right here. And when we go to mountains, we go right up the interstate, right up through Hendersonville, which is right here inside the North Carolina state line. And the elevation increases dramatically right into here. And that's probably causing flash flooding issues with any kind of gigantic shifts with elevation, things like that. Same thing up here in Virginia. Flash flood warnings ongoing. A lot of rain, and it will be enhanced. We'll wrap everything I just said in the last minute and a half. Enhanced rainfall in these regions. And even though you don't see any rain back here in Georgia, it will redevelop. So a lot of rain falling across the Carolinas, Georgia, the Southeast, Eastern Tennessee, even up into Kentucky. Rain making it all the way up into West Virginia. It almost makes a crazy halt right here in kind of southwest, western areas of PA. But certainly a rainy morning for a lot of West Virginia, even areas of Ohio, places like that. We move a little bit further west over here, and we do have some lingering moisture falling just from overnight rain and convection, and honestly just from pieces of energy. If we kind of zone out here, you probably can see the cold front pretty well. It's draped across this region right into here, and you basically got pieces of energy shooting off through here. And then I really think today we're going to have some big time storms right into this region somewhere, with just pieces of energy that is just shooting through here, with this trough just kind of extended across the Pacific Northwest and just along the boundary of the trough and just south of it, in this case just southeast of it. You're going to have pieces of energy, surface lows, shortwave troughs. They ignite the atmosphere in the daytime heating. So not a whole lot going on right in the middle of the country, and this is just kind of because you just got that ridging that's built into this region right now. It's preventing a lot of weather from going on. You guys need a break, especially in the south central U.S., but unfortunately it's going to be replaced by just a dominant heat pattern. And here we go. Excessive heat warnings up for everybody in the purple or really dark pink. I would consider this a purple color, but more of a hot pink right in here with red flag warnings. But this is excessive heat warnings, guys. This is a big deal. Very hot all the way into southern Oklahoma. Heat advisories and the orange. And then you got flood watches even up, bordering these heat advisories. So that, to me, if you combine a flood watch with a heat advisory, the atmosphere is extremely moist and humid and very uncomfortable. So very hot. We'll talk about how hot here in just a second. A flood watch is up for the western Carolinas, even a few counties in northeast Georgia. These are where there's higher elevations, but even with Charlotte, it's not really higher elevation. But you still got a flood watch, and that is because a lot of rain is expected. Those little counties in red, that's flash flood warnings ongoing right now. So the Storm Prediction Center, there is a slight risk up here where I kind of circled. Maybe I circled a little bit further to west. Should be a little bit further east into the Dakotas, but yeah, I think this will get extended a little bit further west, and I'll talk about why here in a second. But you see just a general risk of thunderstorms in this light green where this upper level low is, but there's around where this low pressure is, which is in general right into here. That's a very ugly circle in L, but I need to get a better cursor or a better mouse so I can draw a little bit better. But in general, you got a cyclonic flow around this that's circling around this L, center of low pressure. And with this, you're going to have an atmosphere that's really going to destabilize down here in this region. Therefore, you're going to have rounds of severe storms this afternoon to this evening. Some of these could produce hail. And there's even a tornado threat. And guys, I wasn't with you in last night's video, but the tornado risk yesterday and over the last couple of days, we have had tornadoes and marginal risk, slight risk. I don't know if you folks heard about what happened down there in like the Gulf Shores region near Mobile, the western panhandle of Florida, with that tornado that just rode right along the coastline. And then we even had multiple reports of funnels. It wasn't just reports, it actually was confirmed, but we haven't quite confirmed a tornado like just north of Charlotte, the Lake Norman area. There was actual funnels. It was just a weird day where we had multiple reports of tornadoes. So it's the same kind of setup. So I guess what I'm saying here is don't let your guard down if you're in Baton Rouge, New Orleans, things like that. So severe weather up here. Tornado risk, just a 2% risk in these two areas within 25 miles in any given location. Wind risk, 15% risk of winds pushing 50 knots or higher. Okay, that's 55 to 60 miles per hour. And then the hail threat, it's lower down here, but it's the 15% risk up here, which is a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger hail in this region. The flooding issue there is a real issue today. The flooding risk is a real issue. You got a moderate risk of flooding in the Western Carolinas. This is not surprising at all. The moderate in the red means there's at least a 40% risk of flash flood guidance being met. It's being met right now. You got flash flood warnings. And then you got the slight risk all the way down to Columbia to Augusta, all the way almost back to Atlanta and northern Georgia, all the way up into southwest VA. And then you got a slight risk also and kind of in the Bayou region, southern Mississippi. That is at least a 15% risk in the yellow area, the slight risk, to see flash flood guidance being met. So I'm telling you, if you live in some of these smaller towns and communities, cities, Asheville all the way up to Boone, and everybody in between, these little mountain towns in western North Carolina, you guys know, take it serious when you got setups like this. When they're talking about flooding and this risk, chances are it's going to verify. So let's talk about the Southeast. Let's talk about this flooding risk. We'll take a broad approach, as we always do. This low is right into here. Most of this moist flow is on the eastern side of this. Besides this kind of area right into here, it has a cyclonic flow kind of wrapping around this, but there's enough energy right into here that's going to pop off in Louisiana. So we're going to get around the storms that blast through southern Mississippi and then southeast Louisiana and southern Louisiana today. You can see these storms blasting through the state. Please take this serious. Take the tornado threat serious, even though it's only a 2% chance. But, I mean, you see this spin. Look at all these showers and storms, downpours. These will produce a lot of rain. It rained for like 15, 20 minutes at my house yesterday. And we got like 3/4 of an inch of rain. And that's a lot of rain. That's a lot of rain. I mean, that's almost like you're pushing an inch, like a couple inches an hour at that kind of rate. So a lot of storm activity in Florida, storms all the way are possible, all the way up into Virginia, maybe even West Virginia, Kentucky. These will spin throughout the afternoon, evening hours and last all the way through the overnight hours. And then they might lose some steam, but then they're still going as they're waking up tomorrow morning. A closer look at all this, we'll take a look at Louisiana first. I would say these storms fire up as early as here in the next few hours, 10, 11 a.m. Storms are already firing. And even though you only got the 5% risk of hail, I could see this increasing to a 15% risk of hail down here, of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. But, man, please be careful. This is probably going to be south of Jackson, but Baton Rouge, central Louisiana, all the way down to Lake Charles. These storms could be quite intense. We get into the afternoon hours. These start plaguing the New Orleans, Baton Rouge regions, the Bayou. Take these storms serious. They'll kind of have some weird motion to them. The weird motion of this leads me to believe this is kind of outflow boundary driven, but maybe not. We'll see what happens. But, just be careful in this entire region today, and be careful of a tornado threat. Like I said, this pops up about mid to late morning, lasts throughout the afternoon. And then as we get into the evening hours, this could reform. There could be just kind of a lingering boundary down here. And that's kind of what happened in Florida yesterday. We had a boundary and these storms were just latching on to this boundary, and the boundary wasn't moving, so the storms just kept reforming. And then along that boundary, you got sometimes a changing in direction with winds, and it just puts enough of a spin to the atmosphere where you get a tornado threat. So please be careful down here, Gulfport, New Orleans, Louisiana, down here, southeast Louisiana. Be careful with these storms all the way through the late morning, especially the afternoon and evening hours down here to the south. Okay, we move into the southern Alps region. Start this morning, and we got rain out there already. We already showed that, but this will continue. We get into about midday. This could be a little different, but just know that if you're in North Georgia, the Carolinas, up to Virginia, Kentucky, especially eastern Kentucky and the eastern half of Tennessee, just rounds of heavy showers and storms. Some of these could try to hit severe limits, especially the further south where you're working with better instability, things like that. But you stop it here, it's about 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, the evening. And I mean, you got showers and storms everywhere from Nashville up to Lexington, Kentucky, over to Roanoke, Richmond, Virginia, down to Raleigh, Greensboro, Charlotte, Columbia. But you notice they're scattered and smothered. Waffle House reference. Okay? It's going to be impossible to nail these. I had somebody ask me yesterday, Mitch, and he asked me around 4:35. He said, Is our game good for around 7 o'clock today? And then he snapped me a picture of the Weather Channel Future Radar, which, by the way, are not that accurate. They can be accurate. And there really wasn't nothing going on the radar, and it was hard to answer that because you never know when one of these are going to pop up right over your house. And this is, I mean, that's happening right now. So just if you got any outdoor activities, you know, it's not going to be a good day. But check out this spin. I'll put this in motion from early afternoon all the way through the overnight hours. Just a gnarly spin. And this is my concern, right? You get into about 8 o'clock tonight, and look how you got the flow working in like this. It's kind of getting pushed up against these higher elevations of the mountains. Let's get that off the screen and get this back in motion again. So watch the motion of this. It's working in, and it's getting pushed up against those higher elevations from the southeast. That's got flash flooding risk written all over it, especially as we get into the overnight hours in the North Carolina, South Carolina mountains, especially North Carolina mountains. So, man, please take this serious. You know, you go down to Florida too. I don't want to ignore you folks in Florida, but you guys are going to get a lot of shower and storm activity also. You start off this morning, and I mean, look at this. The entire peninsula of Florida, rounds of strong, maybe even severe storms. You guys have a marginal risk down here. So you're going to get some severe weather in Florida and potentially a lot of rain throughout the morning, the afternoon, evening, and even the overnight hours. You stop this is around 11 p.m. tonight, and I mean, you still got a steady stream of storms working into the Tampa Bay area, Orlando, everywhere. They're obviously not everywhere is going to get it at one time, but if you're in Florida, expect a stormy times. I could see the panhandle of Florida getting a break today. You guys need a break, even southern Alabama. So you guys might actually get a bit of a break today, but you could still have some downpours and some storms possible. You do have a chance for severe weather today there. Rain between now and the next 24 hours, 2, 3, 4 inches of rain expected up against these higher elevations in the eastern slopes of North Carolina. I mean, even 1 to 2 inches of rain here in central North Carolina, Rock Hill, Charlotte, 1 to 2 inches of rain. You could get a couple inches of rain in Columbia. I mean, Atlanta, half inch of rain, a lot of rain. You go down to, I'll take it down to Florida too. Do not want to ignore you guys because it does look like you guys are going to get a lot of rain today. And sure enough, just north of Tampa Bay, the HRRR model picks up on this well. You could have an area of 2 to 3 inches of rain possible in kind of the northern sections of the peninsula of Florida. So take this serious today. Flooding risk is real. The severe weather risk needs to be taken serious too. We've seen over the last couple of days, a marginal and slight risk can produce tornadoes. The Northeast, pretty quiet weather. Some showers, some downpours could make it, overspread areas of West Virginia all the way to the 2 panhandles of West Virginia. So I think somebody told me what they call these areas, and I believe they're just called 2 different panhandles. But you guys in West Virginia, correct me. I'll read a comment, and then I'll get into a video, and I'll put in my head what I want to say and take in knowledge from you folks about these geographical regions, and then I'll just brain fart, and I'll forget them in the middle of the video. But anyways, the rain can make it as far north as that region. You could have some isolated downpours from this upper level low as far north as, western areas of PA. Some showers can make it as far north as central Ohio. But then you got a little bit of oomph to the atmosphere for a few downpours in the southern tier of New York State. Northern PA. Some shower activity is possible up here. Some downpours are possible. Some of these could be in a storm form, maybe produce some small hail. Would not rule it out. But you just got to flow, and here it comes. They're kind of moving from the north to the south, and just some very isolated downpours are possible. And the down east areas of Maine, southern Maine, New Hampshire, down to Mass, this afternoon, this evening. Don't be surprised if you get an isolated downpour or 2 out here one bit. And then we get into the morning hours of tomorrow. You got some rain trying to inch further north into the southern regions of Maryland, the Delmarva region, right into here. We look into the south central U.S. Weather-wise, much quieter. You could have some storms fire up. We already talked about Louisiana and northern Louisiana. One thing about Louisiana, guys, I know sometimes I'll put them in the southeast frame. Sometimes I'll put them in the south central frame. I do apologize. I need to stick to one and stick with it. So if you're living in Louisiana and you're not sure what you either click the southeast tab or either the south central tab, then I guess that's just my method to make you watch more of the video. But anyways, the south central U.S., not a whole lot going on today. Some isolated showers are possible, maybe even a storm or 2 in New Mexico, the panhandle of Florida right into here. Here we go, panhandle, Florida, panhandle of Texas. And then the southwest sections of Texas, you could get some downpours down here, but I don't expect this to be a huge deal whatsoever. What is a big deal is this heat. And this heat is because of you got ridging. There was light ridging over Texas earlier, like this time last week. You had a very small ridge built over this region, and this was allowing for a flow from the north into the southeast, basically that northwest flow into this region. Well, the ridge has gotten taller now. It's kind of turning back into that omega block, which extends all the way into Canada. So you basically got more sinking air, hot, stagnant, flowless air in Texas into Oklahoma now. It means you'd have a very low chance of rain, and then you have a high chance of big-time heat. This happens in the southeast a lot, but we have not seen it over the last 2 summers much. But on both sides of this block, you got troughing right here, troughing over here, this upper level low, and you're being saved by the heat. But here we go, Texas, high temperatures today. Brutal. Temperatures 105, 110 degrees, air temperature. This isn't the heat index, this is air temperature, okay? And the hotter these temperatures get, the further east you work in Texas, the worse it is, because I think most people in Texas know the further east you work in your state, the more humid the air gets. Over here in West Texas, the atmosphere can be totally different than it is in East Texas, all because of the Gulf of Mexico. So these are high temperatures, 90s all the way up into South Dakota today, even into the Dakotas in general, 90s in Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas. You look at the heat index on how it can unfold today, and we'll go to the hottest part of the day. And yeah, the good news is this heat that's going to reach like 110 degrees in kind of west central Texas, western Texas, the heat index is actually going to be lower than the air temperature, which symbolizes there's a lot of dry air into this region. But the heat index, like I said, you get into eastern, southern areas of Texas, heat index will push 120 degrees in certain areas, hundreds in areas of Louisiana. Remember, there's a lot of people in certain areas of northeast Texas, eastern Texas, northern Louisiana, and still in Oklahoma that are without power. So you can actually see the dew point gradient here. So much lower humidity right in here. So even though your temperatures are climbing well into the hundreds, 110 degrees in some cases, your dew point's in the 40s. It's a dry heat, literally. But you get into eastern Texas, there is nothing dry about this heat. Dew points into the upper 70s with air temperatures into the upper 90s, low 100s. Guys, that is absolutely miserable. You can't even go outside for longer than 5 minutes without feeling like the air is choking you out. So hoping for the best for you guys. I hope that we can break the back of this pattern here in time, but unfortunately it's just reinforcing itself. I'll be completely honest with you guys. But the south central U.S., We'll watch. I can tell you from Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Iowa, the Midwest, upper Midwest, quiet weather today. The ridging is affecting you guys. You guys are drying back out again. I know my guy Steven up here in the UP of Michigan saying that it's getting quite dry up there again. And you guys got a little rain. When was it? About 7-10 days ago or something like that. That blocking pattern is building right back into this region like we saw a few weeks ago. And therefore, you're not getting a lot of moisture. You're not getting a lot of weather. It's drying out in Illinois, Iowa, Missouri again. I've heard a lot about the crops in Illinois. And sure enough, it's going to be dry as a bone today. No moisture, not even a chance of a pop-up storm. You go over here into the Dakotas, it's a different story. Intense storms expected late this afternoon, this evening, and overnight. And we'll go on and flip to this. Look more at the northern plains of Montana, Dakotas, Wyoming, etc. We get into this afternoon. We watch as energy begins to shoot out of western Wyoming. This continues to trail off into eastern Montana, northeast Wyoming, and then you even got additional convection already firing up here in the Dakotas. I'm going to be interested to watch how this unfolds. I mean, at this point, it's around 7, 8 p.m. You're starting to get close to when the sun is setting. And how is the storm mode going to be? Are these going to kind of combine with one another? Look how this happens. This area of storms and this area of storms, it has more of a directional flow with it. They like collide right there. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I would say that this is going to be a gnarly supercell right here. There was a guy out here, I think Eastern Montana. If I say Western Montana, I apologize. Eastern Montana, they got a very nice shot of a supercell yesterday. So I could see something like that happen again. But if you live in Eastern Montana, the Western Dakotas, especially the Western and West Central and Central areas of North Dakota, please be careful with some intense storms later tonight, especially. But the rest of the Rockies and the Western U.S., pretty chill weather. I mean, unless you live in the northern sections of Washington State, more consolidated area of showers and heavy rain, snow in the higher elevations, very higher elevations, even some showers and downpours making its way into western Montana and northern Idaho. Outside of that, guys, nothing going on to the southwest. Pretty quiet. Temperatures today, pleasant across the eastern U.S., and mainly due to the fact that you have a lot of rain and cloud cover. Even though you're only in the 70s and 80s down here in the southeast, that is not a comfortable 70s and 80s like a crisp fall air mass in October. That is very high humidity in this region. But it's hard to complain when you're dealing with this kind of stuff in Texas and Oklahoma. All right, temperatures in the upper 90s, low 100s with dew points in the upper 70s, making the heat index well over 110, 115 degrees. Especially when you have no power. No reason to complain here in the southeast. You guys are getting just slammed with this heat. So, sure enough, you see it right here. But you can get 90s. I mean, somebody might try to hit 100 degrees up here near the Canada-U.S. line. I'll be interested to see what happens. 80s, 90s, 80s all the way into the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes region. The western U.S., we know it's below average big time in the Northwest. Not quite as cool as it was yesterday, just below average for everybody, even into the desert Southwest, especially into the valleys of North Carolina. Yes, this is North Carolina. The valleys of California, much below average. It is just flat out below average out west. All right, let's give you an update on the tropics. I want to remind y'all, this was the update these updates are going to be as of 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. Eastern time. So we're 7:08 a.m. Eastern time. So we're probably going to get another update. Heck, they might bring what is Invest 93L, which is this right here, which has a 70% chance to develop in the next 7 days. This might become a depression sometime today. So I guess what I'm trying to tell you guys is some of this information I tell you could be old. But this is as of this morning, as of Tuesday, June the 20th. We got Bret. Bret is a 40-mile-per-hour storm, and we got, which was 92L, and then we got Invest 93L, which has all the indications that is likely going to become a tropical storm too. So we're going to take two names in the main development region in June. That does not happen, but here we are. But this is Bret. This is the latest advisory from 5 a.m., and let's see if there's another one. There is not. So from 5 a.m., currently is a 40-mile-per-hour storm. It's moving west at 17 miles per hour. I could see this upgrading to a 45-mile-per-hour storm. It's certainly not going to just make a drastic upgrade to a hurricane, but it is forecast to become a hurricane, the first hurricane of the year, by probably sometime overnight tomorrow night. As of now, that could change. It could change it back to a tropical storm. In the first cone of uncertainty, it had it as a hurricane all the way into what we call the graveyard of the Caribbean, of the Eastern Caribbean, where a lot of tropical systems go to die. But sure enough, it's kind of dropped off on the intensity, but expected to maintain tropical storm status, could become a hurricane tomorrow night. We'll see what happens. But this is the latest update, Tropical Storm Bret, with one T, not two T's. Not sure why most Brets I know have two T's, but here we are. But the timeline of when you could see, make sure I explain this right, earliest reasonable arrival time of tropical storm force winds. All right, so the Lesser Antilles, okay, the Windward Islands, the Leeward Islands. Windward Islands are the kind of the lower half of the Lesser Antilles. The Windward Islands is the northern half. If I got that mixed up, I do apologize. In fact, let me look at my phone here. Let me see. Windward Islands. Let's make sure I explain this right. Windward Islands. Because I got to get this memorized. But islands. Let's see. You probably got people screaming at me at my screen like, Mitch, it's this. But Leeward Islands is the northern half of these islands. Okay, the Windward Islands is the southern half. So, and then we have the Leeward Antilles, which are these right here just north of South America. So we'll get this memorized eventually. So this is going to affect probably everybody, especially the Windward Islands and the Leeward Islands. Let's call it the Lesser Antilles for now until we get that memorized, right? So tropical storm force winds as early as Thursday morning for these regions. So we'll see how it goes, but this could become a hurricane. But I could also see this not becoming a hurricane. The sun is coming up on this right now. It's looking pretty good. We have something called diurnal maximum. So basically, this is a period of the day when the sun is coming up. We got diurnal minimum, which is when the sun's going down. So the sun is coming up on this right now. So this is a period where you have, it's the coolest time of the day. So the air temperatures are probably in the 70s, and then the sea surface temperatures well into the 80s. So you could have maybe a 5 to as much as a 10-degree difference between the surface of the ocean and then the air above it. That difference in temperatures causes increased convection, rising air. So what I'm saying is the morning time is a favorable time of the day, which is offsetting to thunderstorm development, but it's a favorable time of the day for enhanced tropical development with these systems. And sure enough, this thing is taking on that shrimp look. You see it's got that motion right in here. It's probably not vertically stacked, but we can't confirm that. But I can tell you, it looks like the low-level circulation is right into here. You got a mid-level circulation, which is right here. You got an explosion of convection right on here to the east side, the west side of the storm. And then if you look over here, this is 93L, which is, as of now, is just an invest, but it could become a tropical depression 4 later today, trailing right behind it. But Tropical Storm Bret is doing pretty well for what is classified as a weak tropical storm. And we'll see if this increases on the next update. It probably will. If it doesn't, it'll probably increase throughout the day at some point. But a pretty decent outflow. You see how the clouds up here are extending in the opposite direction. They're kind of circling this way. Has a pretty nice outflow ongoing. So that means the storm is ventilating decently well for the conditions out here. And just in general, the environment is still very conducive for continuous development. Are we going to see rapid development? I don't think so. But we're going to have continuously slow development with this. We look at Bret as far as the track with the European ensemble. Most model runs has this going into the Caribbean. It has it affecting, really going right over kind of the southern sections of the Lesser Antilles right in here into the Caribbean. So we got to see what happens. Most of the ensemble members keeps this as a weaker storm. It does not really have this becoming a hurricane. It keeps it as a tropical storm. But this is just model guidance. And you can already obviously tell that the National Hurricane Center is not really following model guidance much. They're looking at what's happening right now. And honestly, that is always going to be the best bet. It's just like the day of a severe weather outbreak. There's a point where you just stop looking at models and you look at soundings, surface observations, and really see what's going on with the system. So the European ensemble has whatever's going to be left of this in the next few days getting into the Caribbean. Is it going to try to trail off and move northwest? We're just not quite sure. But I can tell you, this is Invest 93L, and this is Bret. This is probably going to be Cindy. And if we take a look at the latest European and what could happen here, in general, if we were taking the European as of a grand conclusion, it keeps Bret about the same strength over the next 24 hours. And then you get to about tomorrow afternoon, it really wants to try to deepen Bret. And the millibar number begins to drop, which means we have a stronger system. At the same time, we have what could be Tropical Depression 4 trailing behind it. What could be Cindy behind it, the C name. Does this become a tropical cyclone? Well, at this point, we'll stop at Thursday afternoon. This begins to affect the Lesser Antilles right in here, the Windward and Leeward Islands, and brings gusty winds, maybe tropical storm force conditions. But it could be a hurricane. It could easily be a sub 1,000 millibar low pressure, guys. It very well could. And this could be Tropical Storm Cindy. But what I can tell you is this is going to slip under weak ridging up here. And as it does, it is just going to get trapped and make it head into the Caribbean. Now, there's upper troughing that's digging down here that's going to weaken this ridging. Therefore, there's going to be a weakness in the pattern. This is going to allow for what right now is 93L to head northwest. It's going to feel that weakness and get pulled to the northwest, to the north, and then probably make that turn out to sea. But of course, we get about a week out. We don't know what this thing is going to do. But if I was like Bermuda, yeah, I would keep my eyes on the one behind it. But it's almost a sure bet that Bret is probably going to head into the Caribbean. It's just, I don't think it's going to last. But we still got to watch it because the Caribbean waters are hot too. But this area right here of the Caribbean is notorious for destroying and shredding tropical systems. And normally it's because you have a TUT in place, which is an upper level low that lashes these systems with shear and dry air. So we got to see what happens here. And, just kind of talking about as far as the environment, this thing, both of these systems are surrounded by a nice moist plume of air, which is symbolized in the green here. On top, dry air. And you keep this moving here. If you notice, this system right here, Bret, gets somewhat displaced from its kind of moisture bubble right here. So that's when I really think it begins to weaken and it loses its steam. And then I think all the moisture is going to be displaced to the east side of the storm. In fact, it's probably going to begin that process over the next 24 hours, or most of the moisture will be displaced to the west side of the storm. But if you look at the one behind it, it looks good for a while. Nice moist plume with it. It's basically creating its own moist environment as we get later this week, but it still makes that turn. And I mean, it has a pretty nice looking moist plume, but as you can tell, dry air really starts to affect as we get into this weekend. If this is where it's at, could be Cindy, starts to affect the eastern side of this system, the western side of the system, I'm sorry. And when you have the influence of this upper trophings bringing in dry air and shear. So yeah, another way to look at this, and I got to jump off here really quick here, but you got the two systems. If you look at the wind streams, are kind of going away from the actual low-level spin, which on the northern hemisphere always goes like this. You got these winds that are moving in the upper level, like 20, 30, 40,000 feet up in the air, going away from the system. This is acting to push air away from the center of whatever center of circulation is right here. What this does is, as air rises in the middle of the system, it spreads out. These winds moving in the opposite direction pushes air from the center of this system. So basically, more air rises, it pushes air away, then more air rises, then this anticyclone pushes it away. We call it a ULAC, upper level anticyclone. So you would think, okay, well, Mitch, wind's moving in the opposite direction as the actual center of circulation. That seems like you're going to have a competing thing. It doesn't. Pushes air away, allows for more air to rise, and rising air, most of us know, causes more convection, more storm development. So this is the case, but eventually it just weakens it gets blasted by shear right as it moves into this region. We'll talk deeper. We'll try to explain this better. I try to get my leeward and windward islands correct. I had all this mastered last hurricane season, but of course, you talk about winter, you talk about severe weather season, and we'll get it right here. But God bless all y'all. Have a great day. I'll be with y'all guys this evening, and talk to you soon.